2020 special call ETSB meeting to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Noonan.
Here.
Franz.
Here.
Andalcio. See you. Andalcio.
He's muted.
Here.
Philidou.
Here.
Connolly.
Here.
Eckhoff.
Here.
Marinowitz. Renahan.
Here.
Shar.
Here.
Hetmeyer.
Here.
Teams.
Here.
And Tillman.
Here.
Okay, I'm advised we do have a quorum, but in compliance with the governor's disaster declaration, and since we don't have a physical quorum, we're going to have to do a roll call vote on each agenda item. And if I could remind you, if you could please state your name after you make the motion, or if you make a second. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment?
There's one public comment, Chief Keith Creston, as a matter of record for attendance only.
Okay, note that. I don't have anything under chairman's remarks. Do we have anything from our members? Okay, hearing none, move on to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the monthly staff report 19-20-57, the monthly report for September 14th, special call meeting.
Can I move to combine and approve all 6A, B, C, and D? That's okay.
Sure. Well, combine. You can't do approve. Combine.
Sure.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to combine consent agendas items A, B, C, and D. Motion to combine.
Move.
Second. Tegmeyer.
Any discussion? Any additions, deletions, or corrections for the previous minutes? Hearing none, roll call.
Eckhoff. Marinowitz. Renahan.
Yes.
Shar.
Yes.
Hetmeyer.
Yes.
Teams.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Noonan.
Aye.
Franz.
Yes.
Andalcio.
Yes.
Philidou.
Yes.
Connolly.
Yes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the monthly staff report, the revenue report 911 surcharge funds, minutes approval policy advisory committee, and the minutes approval ETS board. Motion to approve.
So moved. Eckhoff.
Second. Tegmeyer.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Eckhoff.
Aye.
Marinowitz. Renahan.
Aye.
Shar.
Aye.
Hetmeyer.
Aye.
Teams.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Noonan.
Aye.
Franz.
Yes.
Andalcio.
Yes.
Philidou.
Yes.
And Connolly.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to item 7A under milestones, I'll entertain a motion to approve ETSR 3820 resolution for approval of milestone number 22, the second half of a monetary milestone for the final project completion. Total amount of $154,751.62.
So moved. Eckhoff.
Second, Andalcio.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state aye, or roll call, please.
Eckhoff.
Aye.
Marinowitz. Renahan.
Aye.
Shar.
Aye.
Hetmeyer.
Aye.
Teams.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Noonan.
Aye.
Franz.
Yes.
Andalcio.
Yes.
Philidou.
Yes.
Connolly.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Under payment of claims, I'll entertain a motion to approve 19-20-56 payment of claims for September 14, 2020 for FY20.
Motion, Shar.
Second, James.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Carr,
Aye.
Heckmeyer,
Aye.
Weems,
Aye.
Tillman,
Aye.
Noonan,
Aye.
Franz,
Yes.
Indalcio,
Yes.
Udu,
Yes.
Connolly,
Aye.
Eckhoff,
Aye.
Baranowitz, and Renahan.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Under purchase resolutions, I'll entertain a motion to approve ETSR 5420, awarding resolution to CDW Government for a one-year renewal, total amount $7,843.75.
Chairman, I'm recusing myself, David Andalcio, from this
Okay,
purchase resolution.
show member Indelcio recusing himself.
So moved.
Okay. Any discussion? Good. Can I get a second?
Order.
Somebody say second.
I think Billy did.
Order. Second.
Okay.
Third.
Any discussion?
Ninth.
All right. Roll call, please.
Eckhoff,
Aye.
Baranowitz, Renahan.
No.
Is that a no?
No.
Shar,
Aye.
Heckmeyer,
Aye.
Weems,
Aye.
Tillman,
Aye.
Noonan,
Aye.
Franz,
Yes.
Indalcio, Biladu,
Yes.
and Connolly.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Under resolutions, I'll entertain a motion to approve ETSR 55-20, resolution declaring equipment, inventory, and/or other property listed on Exhibit A purchased by ETSB as surplus equipment.
So move, Shar.
Second, Conley.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Shar,
Aye.
Heckmeyer,
Aye.
Weems,
Aye.
Tillman,
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Tillman, aye.
Noonan,
Aye.
Franz,
Yes.
Indalcio,
Aye.
Udu,
Yes.
Connolly,
Aye.
Eckhoff,
Aye.
Baranowitz, Renahan.
Aye.
Motion passes. I'll entertain a motion to approve ETSR 5720, resolution for a license agreement between the County of DuPage, the Emergency Telephone System Board of DuPage, and the new Singular Wireless PCS for new AT&T antennas and equipment on the existing self-support tower.
So moved. Eckhoff.
Second, Teams.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Eckhoff,
Aye.
Baranowitz, Renahan,
Aye.
Shar,
Aye.
Heckmeyer,
Aye.
Weems,
Aye.
Tillman,
Aye.
Noonan,
Aye.
Franz,
Yes.
Indalcio,
Yes.
Udu,
Yes.
Connolly,
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Under action items, I'll entertain a motion to combine items E1 through 4. There's a motion to combine.
So moved.
Second, Andalcio.
Okay. Roll call.
Eckhoff,
Aye.
Baranowitz, Renahan,
Aye.
Shar,
Aye.
Heckmeyer,
Aye.
Weems,
Aye.
Tillman,
Aye.
Noonan,
Aye.
Franz, Franz,
Okay.
Yes.
Indalcio,
Yes.
Udu,
Yes.
Connolly,
Aye.
Now, motion to approve under action items 19-20-53 Starcom 21 radio airtime request Glen Ellen VFD. 19-20-54 Starcom 21 radio airtime request Tri-State FPD. 19-20-58 Starcom 21 radio airtime requests York Center FPD, and 19-20-59 consolidation costs sheriff's consolidation. Motion to approve these items.
So move Conley.
Second on Dalcio.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Connolly.
Aye.
Peckham.
Aye.
Baranowitz, Renegade,
Aye.
Shar,
Aye.
Etmeyer,
Aye.
Keens,
Aye.
Noonan,
Aye.
Noonan,
Aye.
Franz,
Yes.
Adolfo,
Aye.
and Billadew.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the state's attorney presentation.
Morning.
Morning.
State Attorney's Office was asked to give an informal opinion regarding DuPage County ETSB ordinance and whether or not that ordinance will allow the ETSB to assign its powers and duties, which are enumerated in the Emergency Telephone System Act. Short answer is no. It does not provide that power. This morning, I believe Ms. Zerwin sent out a copy of the informal opinion that was prepared by my office. Essentially, it says that there are several powers provided for in the DuPage County ordinance, and none of those powers include the power to delegate the ultimate authority, powers, and duties of ETSB.
This is Member Tillman. It's a little bit difficult to hear you, so I want to be clear that it does not allow the duties to be assigned to another entity. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. Does anyone else having a hard time hearing?
Little bit.
I was too. Yeah, thanks, Mike.
I'll move on.
Maybe just, this is Jim Conley, just so we're clear on terminology. And Mike, I think you were paraphrasing, you said duties, but it's the ultimate authority and responsibility that you can't delegate. You can have people perform duties, whether they be contractors or PSAPs or others, but the ETSB as a board retains the ultimate authority and responsibility for those. So when something goes awry, we can't go point a finger at somebody else. We're ultimately responsible. Is that a correct interpretation, Mr. Attorney, State's Attorney?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question, I guess. I'm just reading this for the first time, so forgive me. Maybe you enumerate this already in your memo, but is there anything that prohibits the ETSB in transferring funds directly to the PSAPs? If the ETSB board approves such an action?
I don't believe there is. I mean, as was just indicated, the ETSB can contract with various entities, but they retain control over the work, the responsibilities, et cetera, for those, or for that work for which they've contracted.
Okay, I'll reserve other questions at such time as I can, we can read this a little more thoroughly and think through it, but appreciate the information.
Are there any other questions?
Looks like that's it. Thanks, Paul. All right, moving on. The next item, budget FY21. Linda?
So the board got an update on where we're at so far. So last few months, you've been at your meetings, reviewing different aspects of the budget to give the staff direction. There was a small group meeting, as the background indicates, and that small group had no opposition to the capital items that were provided to you to date. So they were inserted into your budget, including in your 5-year projection, any maintenance that would be. The only thing we haven't done is put any, the vault purchase is over 100,000. So at some point you'll have to decide if you want that in the capital replacement. That's, not as large a number as some of the other things we're saving for, but still a large number. So when we buy that, we'll have to take direction on that. And then I've noted some carryovers that will be inserted into that were inserted into the budget to make sure that we have enough funds allocated or set aside if those payments come in FY21 instead of 22. And then the open items, the capital contingency contribution. There's a few change orders that are currently under review right now. I did not list them because I didn't want to muddy the waters, but I'm just giving you an idea of there may be a couple of other things coming in as we review them for payment. And then the staff study is also still something that's under review, or an open item in terms of board direction. And then the last item is the PSEP allocation that member Franz just referred to. We're working on formulas to see how that goes. And while the board hasn't made a decision on radios in the budget that I've given you are plugged in to the budget in 22 and 23, so that you can kind of, so it's the easiest way to play out the 5 or 10 year projection and savings. So you have to do it somewhere. And then I would point out, remember that you haven't, this board as a whole, not these members per se, have not set aside any funding in the last 10 years for radio or other capital purchases. So you're a little bit behind. Once that is caught up, then it looks like we can drop the capital purchase or the capital contribution down to about 4.5 million if everything stays at a $14 million surcharge. The budget impact to those things that were added based on the recommendation of the small group that you have yet to approve as a larger group moves your budget up, your operating budget from 14% to 13% decrease, which is still pretty good. And then in part of the capital purchasing recommendations, there was a software that you got a separate memo on called monday.com, and we have an opportunity to procure that, and the payment would be invoiced in FY21. So the staff recommendation would be if you're so inclined to include those in the budget, that we get that on the October agenda. This was discussed by the directors, PSEP and ETSB, as a communication tool that would be beneficial to have. So we'd like to get it rolling as quickly as possible. And then your future impact in terms of the dollars that we know right now are the capital contingency recommendation to stay on track. And depending on what you do with personnel and staffing in that discussion, the $700,000 increase for that. And that's where we're at right now. So you've got an update budget spreadsheet for that of where we're at. I only did a 5-year projection on what that looks like, mostly because it's a little more readable, and then showing where your capital costs are. The small group is scheduled to meet again on the 23rd. So I guess I'm just looking for direction from that point. So that's the update.
Thank you, Linda. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add? Any of the participants in that small group?
Does Jim Conley have a question for Linda? I'm on, what page is it? They're not numbered. I guess the last page before the memo 70 starts. It's one that says, has the capital reserve at 40% of operating budget. That's the, I know we keep using the word capital, but that's our a recommended operating reserve, correct? It's not a real fund. It's just the amount of money we want to make sure we have to start the new year and not go negative from a cash flow perspective. Is that assumption correct?
I think that that's still under discussion. It plugged in certain numbers to see how far we can get across the board. And I'm assuming, though it hasn't been stated, that Member France's goal would be to define a operating reserve to start with, and then whatever is over that number be distributed to the PSAPs.
So that understand we haven't necessarily agreed on the number, but let's just assume for sake of discussion, we agreed on 40%. That's what that line is. And then and mine is real small print. So I'll make sure I understand what the line names are. The next line down, which in fiscal year 22 is $2.6 million. That's what you just said a second ago. That would be theoretically available to PSAPs. Do I understand the spreadsheet correctly?
It's possible, yeah. I mean, right now, I'm just trying to put everything in and make sure there's money to go all the way through with the contingencies. So those items in this spreadsheet aren't really set in stone because I just started working through. And then what happens when you get beyond 5 years with just a 3% and 5% increase, multiplier for contracts, which is typical when you see renewals, that contribution becomes diminished. So I'm looking at, so we can talk intelligently, I guess, about what it looks like. So I'm plugging in a couple of different scenarios or looking to see how we get over the initial hump of starting this to be a little more leveled off and a consistent contribution.
So I think I understand that, and I'm not suggesting it is cast in stone. I just want to make sure I understand what the columns and the rows are supposed to be. In theory, if we kept a 40% operating budget in fiscal year 22, the spreadsheet as constructed would say theoretically we could allocate up to $2.6 million to PSAPs. Is that what the spreadsheet is telling us?
It could. I wasn't really prepared to talk about that part because nobody had agreed on a formula. So I just started playing around with it. Right?
Okay, I understand. I'm not pressing you for it. I just want to make sure I just understand what the numbers on the spreadsheet show. So having said that, I just want to express the same caution I expressed at the small group meeting and the last board meeting. And that is, these are based on a variety of assumptions, and some could be optimistic and some could be pessimistic. Just remind everybody this is based on a $14 million annual revenue, which we have many risks that we discussed in the last board meeting and in the small group meeting. We've chosen to use the 14 million because that represents the current status, but we have no reason to know for sure that will take place. And then just on the expense side, this is all based on a projection of expenses over 10, 12 years out now, I believe, for radios. I just give you one example of how big the miss could be on some of these estimates. When Linda, I believe you've generally been putting in replacements at similar cost to what the original purchase was, like for radios. The same radios with the features that police may want for encryption, and that radio went from around $6,500 to about $9,500 over a 8-year or 9-year period. That's a 50% increase roughly. That's on a $20 million contract. That's a $10 million change. So I just point that out as we're making projections, but these are projections, and $1 million can go really quickly. To give you one more example, is we just approved, dozens of new radios. Every time we approve a radio, we take on the long-term liability for airtime unless we change our policy. So we just completed a fire survey, And if we were to allocate radios out the way we originally intended for fire, including mobile radios, I mean, you're potentially talking about several hundred additional radios that we hadn't contemplated, or that the agencies choose to purchase on their own, as you just saw with Glen Ellen with 20 or 22, whatever the number was. Every 250 radios represents $1 million a year in, is that right number, Linda? 250 radios is $1 million in airtime? Am I doing my math correctly?
It's a mobile- if it's-
250 times 400?
If you're talking mobiles, they're half the price, so
No, I wasn't talking mobiles, but they just bought portable radios. 250 times 400 is, sorry, $100,000 a year. I had a decimal point off. But over 10 years, that's $1 million. So I just caution everybody that we, while it looks good and it sounds, conceptually sounds like a really good idea, I just caution you that any money that you choose to allocate back to PSAPs is money you can't get back. And these are based on long-term projections of only the systems we have today, not anything that will change in the future. And we talked about it in our small group meeting, but there's tons and tons of things that are already out there today that are a viable technology that could change, and not to mention what will happen in the next 5 to 10 years. So same caution as last time. I just think it's a very risky strategy to be allocating large dollar amounts to PSAPs when we don't know the future and we don't know future costs and or future revenues. And I'll stop there. Thanks.
This is Member Tillman. I second what Member Connolly said, and I think Linda, you pointed out in the staff memo or the memo for the board packet that there's still uncertainty at the state level as to what the cost will be to deploy NG 911 network, and what, if any, impact it will have on a formula change in terms of the ETSB surge charge revenue that is dispersed to the ETSBs throughout the state. Is that accurate?
it is an unknown, yes. And we don't have dollar amounts for the statewide network, and unless, if the surcharge stayed at $1.50, we don't know what that impact would be to the distribution. So we're hoping to get those numbers so we can do the math at the state level and either make adjustments in the legislation or, look at how the distribution formula is.
Okay, thank you.
If I could just add a quick comment too, I appreciate the work that's been done on the budget this year, and I really appreciate the committee coming together and being able to do a little deeper dive. This is a big question that we're going to have to come to some agreement on, obviously, and the finance committee is going to be meeting one more time, or finance group, excuse me, and then I think at the next board meeting is when we're going to probably have to have some direction from the board. So I hope we can kind of lay this out for everybody so that everyone understands what's being raised as an issue here, and then we can make a decision as a group. But I agree with we don't want to put our long-term future at risk. But the way I'm looking at the budget, and I think this has been confirmed, is even after a purchase of radios in 5 years, we're projected to have $25 million in the bank, above and beyond a surplus policy. I think that is too much money to be sitting on as a rainy day fund, and we should be looking at giving some of that money to the PSAPs so that the PSAPs can control costs, or in ACDC's case, maybe there's unmet needs there as a new dispatch operation. And that's what I think this board's going to have to evaluate and make a decision on. So I think we're heading in that direction. And I think we need to make sure that this board understands the options, and we allow ourselves to make the best decision for the future.
Does anybody else have anything to add? Okay, we'll move on to DuPage ETSB 911 system design. You have anything for that, Linda?
I do, but can we just back up 1 second?
Sure.
Just for a little direction, is there any direction you know, for staff or for the finance group for their next meeting. So I have an idea of where we're going. Or does everything in the memo line up and the larger board is comfortable with that smaller group making those recommendations, just so I have an idea of what I should be preparing. I think it's working fine. I just want to know if the open, I'm assuming then the open items will be discussed by that smaller group and brought forward. Anybody?
They're gonna.
Chairman, Chairman, if I may, I think that's the point. I think that since we know we don't have, I don't know that the smaller group will be able to provide consensus on every open item, but I think that the further discussion there and if there's the ability to have a recommendation from the smaller group, the full board gets to discuss the final budget before approval. But I thought that the smaller group was helpful, and I look forward to the next meeting to continue to work through these things and have some discussions and bring back, because I think it'll help all of us at least discuss the budget. From where we're coming from as far as, and then what will be in the final budget.
Chairman Noonan, can I ask one quick question? Linda, did you provide a budget summary for this agenda, or are you referring to what you provided last meeting?
There was a budget summary memo that went out on Friday morning.
Okay, so it's not on the agenda, that was separate.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I missed that. I wonder if it makes sense to try to include that budget information on the agenda so it's just easier for everyone to kind of track down, but that's just a logistical thing. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, I almost thought it. So, and I don't disagree with Member Tegmer. I'm just seeking direction because I just want to make sure I'm moving in the right directions and everybody's comfortable, and that's fine. That's all I wanted to talk about. On the 911 system design, aside from staffing, Carlson had approached me regarding the finalizing of the RSA contract. And together we're reviewing some of the gaps in service. So we may have an adjustment to the staffing plan based on my discussion with Don Carlson. So it's very preliminary right now, and it may be nothing, but it is something that, I've often said same pair of pants, different pocket. And I'm conscious of the fact that municipalities are paying for report writing, staffing, and if there's a way that we can share some of those costs, we're looking at that. So, it may be more here, but it's the municipalities paying in different directions. So we're looking at some of those things. So that's coming forward as a kind of a heads up, and I'll finalize that report. I think there'll be some discussion tomorrow at the PMRS Oversight Committee. So I wanted you to know that, yes, we are looking at it, but I don't have anything definitive, and we don't have any direction from the Oversight Committee on whether or not they're interested in that. If they're interested, then we'll come forward with any options for you to consider as well. And that's all I have on system design.
Linda, it's Jim Conley. Can I make a request that if you are talking about, and I know you're speaking in generalities right now about report writing, and I know that the focus has been on the police side where there's a huge, obviously, record system and report writing. I know some other ETSBs do support fire records and fire reporting. If you're having those discussions, at least ask you to consider the potential for rolling fire into at least that consideration. I'm not saying that's the right solution, but maybe there's some economies of scale that we could achieve. But again, I don't know the details of what you're discussing, but just ask you to consider that.
From the state's attorney level, we will consider anything that's within the statutory allowance for surcharge.
Understand, and maybe even like police records where some of this is, not allowed and has to be reimbursed, but it's more efficient to do one time, one way than to do it, 6 different ways. So just throwing it out there as something to consider as you deliberate on that subject.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Chairman, just, I don't know if we need to go back to the budget, but Linda, did you need direction on memo 70?
Yes, I did. Thank you. We got sidetracked there for a minute. That would be the communication tool and the ability to bring the contract to the October agenda. If there's no opposition to it by board members.
I would be in favor of that. It's member teams.
Yeah, member Tegmeyer, I'm in favor.
Good enough for me.
Chairman Noonan's in favor of it.
Maybe we should ask if anyone's not in favor of it.
Or show of hands if you are, and then in terms of consensus, you're not voting it in. We'll just bring it forward then. Everybody?
Show of hands.
Yeah, show of hands. There you go. Yay. Okay. Moving on. Thank you, member Chamber.
All right, next item on the agenda is the DUJIS, DuPage Justice Information System.
I don't have anything else.
Nothing, okay. Does anybody else have anything? Nothing. All right, moving on to old business. Does anybody have any old business? Hearing none, we'll move on to new business. Does anybody have any new business? Okay, we don't have any executive session. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, October 5th at 9 a.m. And without objection, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
Thanks for stopping by.
Everyone, have a good day.